Between the years 1627 and 1629, in the city of Würzburg, at least 900 people were executed for witchcraft. They were not strangers. They were children, students, priests, city councilors, pregnant women, neighbors. Some were as young as 7 years old. This was not a riot. This was not a mob. This was not chaos. It was law. Every arrest was recorded, every interrogation documented, every execution approved by church and state. The accused confessed. They always confessed, not because they were guilty, but because the pain did not stop until they agreed. And once they did, they were required to name others. That is how the fire spread. In Würzburg, witchcraft was not hunted in the shadows. It was processed in offices, signed by officials, and justified from the pulpit. This is not a story of superstition. This is the story of what happens when fear is given authority and cruelty is mistaken for righteousness. Würzburg was not a village lost to rumour. It was a wealthy, educated city in the Holy Roman Empire, and it was ruled by a single authority: the Prince Bishop. In Würzburg, church and state were not separate powers. They were the same hand holding both the law and the soul. At the height of the trials, that hand belonged to Philip Adolf von Ehrenberg. He governed during famine, war, and plague. A time when God was believed to punish entire cities for the hidden sins of the few. Witchcraft was not folklore here. It was a capital crime, defined in law, punishable by death. To protect Würzburg, the Prince Bishop expanded the courts, appointed special witch commissioners, and issued decrees authorizing arrests, interrogations, and executions. This was not panic. It was policy. The prisons filled quickly, so quickly that new holding cells had to be built. And once the system was in motion, it did not stop to ask whether it was right, only whether it was thorough. Accusations in Würzburg did not begin with evidence. They began with names offered by prisoners already in chains, by children questioned in isolation, by neighbors pressed until someone spoke. Once a name was given, it entered the record. And once it entered the record, there was no path back out. The accused did not face an investigation. They entered a system already convinced of the outcome. Interrogations followed a script preserved in the trial protocols. The questions were precise, the expectations clear. Torture was not applied to discover the truth. It was applied to bring the accused into agreement with what the court already believed. Confession was required. If the accused denied the charge, the pain increased. If they confessed and later withdrew their words, the retraction was dismissed. If they remained silent, the silence itself was recorded as guilt. The court did not ask whether witchcraft had occurred. It asked for details. When did you renounce God? What demon marked you? Who stood beside you at the Sabbath? Every answer created new names. Every new name fed the machine. The trials did not ask if you were a witch. They asked who else you had seen at the Sabbath, and with each confession, the circle tightened. Once you were inside the Würzburg system, the question was never, "Are you innocent?" The question was how long you could endure before your body betrayed you. The records show a process, not a frenzy, a method, a sequence. And to understand what that sequence did to people, historians often place Würzburg beside Bamberg, because they ran on the same legal theology, the same demonology, the same belief that torture could produce salvation. One of the clearest windows into that world comes from Bamberg, the letter of Johannes Junius. He was not a peasant, he was a respected man, a mayor, writing in secret to his daughter from prison. He describes torture applied in stages, pressure, pain, escalation, each denial treated as proof that the devil was holding him steady. He describes the interrogators telling him what they needed, not asking him what happened, telling him what must be said. The relief did not come from truth. It came from compliance. And the heart of his message, the line that should never be forgotten, is this. They told him he must say he was a witch, or the torture would continue. That is not a metaphor. That is the logic of the machine. And when you return to Würzburg's protocols, you see the same shape, confessions that unfold like templates, the same Sabbath imagery, the same language of renouncing God, the same demons, the same facts appearing again and again as if the devil himself had hired a clerk to keep the story consistent. And always, always, the final demand. Names. Who else was there? Who did you see? Who stood beside you? Every confession widened the hunt. Every name became a new arrest. And the system did not just punish the accused, it consumed whole families. And then it moved into something worse. Würzburg did not stop at adults. The execution lists and trial records show children among the condemned, not as rare exceptions. As part of the harvest, children accused by other children, children accused after their parents were already imprisoned, the accusation bleeding through the household like smoke. Some were interrogated alone. And here is the line that matters, because it tells you what kind of world this was. In Würzburg, childhood was not a defense. It was evidence of corruption. The records speak of choir boys, students, daughters of city officials, children whose lives should have been protected by every idea of mercy the church claimed to teach. Instead, they were treated as proof that evil was everywhere, even in the smallest bodies. And that is what makes Würzburg different from a ghost story. A ghost story ends when the monster is revealed. Würzburg's monster wore a robe, held a seal, kept minutes, and it did not ask how to stop the killing. It asked who to name next. The Würzburg trials did not run themselves. They were authorized. At the center of the machinery stood Prince Bishop Philipp Adolf von Ehrenberg. His decrees expanded witch commissions, appointed interrogators, and approved funding for new prisons and executioners. This was not passive leadership. It was acceleration. Arrests increased, interrogations multiplied, executions became routine. And with each conviction, property was seized. Homes, land, inheritance. The wealth of the condemned flowed back into the system that destroyed them. The witch trials paid for themselves. This was not hysteria spiraling out of control. It was policy, written, signed, and enforced. But even systems built on certainty eventually strain under their own weight. The trials slowed only when the net reached too high. When council families were accused, when respected households were threatened, when external pressure began to ask questions the courts could not easily silence. There was no moment of reckoning, no public apology, no admission of error, no naming of responsibility. The executions stopped, the records remained, and the men who authorized them moved on. Würzburg did not burn witches because it lost control. It burned them because it believed it was saving souls. This series is not about monsters. It is about systems that create them, in the name of faith, order, and righteousness. Next time, Katharina Kepler, a woman accused of witchcraft whose trial reveals what it took to survive when the system turned its gaze on you.